The Empire had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. They were tall creatures with silver skin and 4 eyes that glowed like blue flames. Their ships were made from a material they called. It was the strongest substance in the known galaxy. No weapon could scratch it. No fire could melt it. No force could break it. They believed their technology was perfect in every way. Commander stood on the bridge of his mighty warship, the Ascendant Glory. It was the finest vessel in the Imperial fleet, 3 miles long and armed with weapons that could crack a planet in half. Had served the Empire for 200 years and he had never known fear. Why would he? His ship was indestructible. But on this day, something went wrong. The engine made a sound that had never heard before. It was a grinding, screeching noise that echoed through the entire ship. Warning lights flashed red across every control panel. The ship shook violently, and then everything went dark. When the emergency power came back online, checked the damage reports. The main drive core was cracked. Power was leaking from a dozen conduits. The ship was drifting helplessly near a small yellow star in an uncharted region of space. Called his chief engineer, a nervous named. The engineer examined the damage and his 4 eyes went wide with shock. "Commander, this is impossible," said. "Cannot crack. Our records show that this material has never failed in 12,000 years of use." "And yet it has failed now," replied coldly. "Fix it." Shook his head slowly. "I cannot, Commander. We do not have the tools or materials to repair. It was never designed to be repaired because it was never supposed to break." This news hit like a physical blow. His perfect ship was broken, and there was nothing anyone could do about it. He ordered his crew to send out a distress signal and hoped that another vessel was close enough to rescue them. But the first ship to respond was not at all. Captain Jake was having a quiet day aboard the Earth vessel Endurance. He was a simple man from a small town in Nebraska. He had grown up on a farm where he learned to fix tractors and trucks with his own 2 hands. He joined the United Earth Coalition because he wanted to explore the stars, but he never expected to find anything too exciting out here near Jupiter. Then his communications officer picked up a strange signal. "Captain, I am detecting a distress beacon," said Lieutenant. "It is not using any known Earth frequency. I think it might be alien." Jake leaned forward in his chair. In all his years of service, humanity had never made contact with intelligent alien life. This could be the most important moment in human history. "Can you locate the source?" he asked. Worked her console for a moment. "Yes, sir. It is coming from a large object approximately 2 million miles from our position. It appears to be a ship, but it is bigger than anything I have ever seen." Jake made his decision quickly. "Set a course. Let us go see if they need help." His first officer, Commander Danny Price, raised an eyebrow. "Sir, we have no idea what we are dealing with. These aliens could be hostile." "They could be," Jake agreed. "But they sent a distress signal. That means they are in trouble. Where I come from, you help people in trouble. You do not leave them floating in the dark." The Endurance was a small ship compared to the Ascendant Glory. When they arrived, Jake felt like a mouse approaching an elephant. The alien vessel was enormous and beautiful, covered in glittering crystals that reflected the distant sunlight. Watched the tiny human ship approach with contempt. These primitive creatures had no idea who they were dealing with. If his weapons were working, he would have destroyed them without a second thought. But his weapons were offline and he was desperate. He allowed the humans to dock with his ship. Jake led a small team aboard the alien vessel. With him was his chief engineer, Ben Carter, and his science officer, Dr. Morgan. They wore environmental suits because they had no idea if the alien air was safe to breathe. The guards met them at the airlock. They were 8 feet tall and carried weapons that looked like they could vaporize a human with a single shot. Jake kept his hands visible and his voice calm. "We received your distress signal," he said through his translation device. "We are here to help." Commander stepped forward. He looked down at the small humans with barely hidden disgust. "You cannot help us. Your technology is primitive. You do not even have faster-than-light travel yet." Jake shrugged. "Maybe not, but we are pretty good at fixing things. Mind if we take a look at your engine?" Wanted to refuse. The very idea of these primitive creatures touching technology was insulting, but he had no other options. He waved his hand dismissively and ordered his guards to escort the humans to the engine room. Ben Carter walked around the damaged drive core with genuine curiosity. He had never seen anything like it. The technology was thousands of years ahead of anything on Earth, but damaged machinery was damaged machinery, no matter how advanced it was. He pulled out a small scanner and began taking readings. Morgan examined the crack with a device that measured molecular structure. They talked quietly to each other, pointing at things and taking notes. After an hour of examination, Ben started to laugh. Stared at him with all four eyes. "What is so amusing, human?" Ben pointed at the cracked power coupling. "I know what went wrong. You have a resonance feedback loop. The vibration frequency from your engine is matching the natural frequency of this material. It is shaking itself apart from the inside." "That is impossible," said firmly. "Cannot be affected by vibration." "Everything can be affected by vibration," Ben replied. "It is basic physics. Even the strongest bridge will collapse if soldiers march across it in perfect rhythm. Yours is strong, but it is not immune to the laws of the universe." Turned to his own engineer, looked deeply uncomfortable. "Commander, the human may be correct. We never tested against sustained harmonic resonance. It was considered unnecessary." Ben Carter smiled and rolled up his sleeves. "Well then, let us see if we can fix this thing. Hand me that welding torch. I have an idea." And just like that, a simple human engineer from Earth began working on technology that the most advanced civilization in the galaxy could not repair. Ben Carter worked through the night. He did not sleep. He did not eat. He simply focused on the problem in front of him with the same stubborn determination that had made him the best engineer in the Earth fleet. They watched him with a mixture of confusion and fascination. They had never seen anyone work like this before. In their civilization, engineers sat at computer terminals and ran simulations. They never touched the machines themselves. That was considered beneath them. But Ben was covered in grease and some kind of blue fluid that leaked from the alien conduits. His hands were burned in 3 places from touching surfaces that were too hot. He had cut his forehead on a sharp edge and dried blood mixed with sweat on his face. He looked terrible and he did not care at all. "Hand me that connector," he said to Morgan. She passed him a piece of equipment that she had modified using parts from their own ship. "Perfect. Now let us see if this works." He welded the connector into place using a portable torch that burned hot enough to melt titanium. Around the repair site glowed orange for a moment before cooling back to its normal silver color. Commander watched with growing unease. "You are attaching human materials to technology. This is contamination. It will never work properly." Ben wiped his face with a dirty rag. "Maybe, maybe not, but your pure technology is broken and floating dead in space. My contaminated repair might just get you home." He finished the last connection and stepped back. The drive core was covered in patches and modifications that looked ugly compared to the smooth design. It looked like someone had performed surgery on a sculpture using parts from a junkyard. "All right," Ben said, "power it up slowly. Let us see what happens." The engineer hesitated. He looked at Commander for permission, nodded reluctantly. They had nothing to lose at this point. Activated the drive core. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then there was a low humming sound that grew steadily louder. The lights on the control panels changed from red to yellow to green. The drive core began to glow with a soft blue light. Morgan checked her readings and her eyes went wide. "Ben, are you seeing this?" Ben looked at his own scanner and started to laugh again. Well, I will be damned. It is not just working, it is working better than before. The engineers crowded around the displays. The numbers confirmed what the humans were saying. The repaired drive core was operating at 30% higher efficiency than its original specifications. Somehow, the crude human modifications had actually improved on 12,000 years of engineering. Could not understand it. How is this possible? Your technology is thousands of years behind ours. How could you improve our designs? Lieutenant, who had been quietly assisting Ben throughout the night, decided to answer. She was a red-haired woman from Boston who spoke her mind freely and did not care much for diplomacy. Your engineers are too smart for their own good, she said. They design everything using mathematics and computer models. They optimize for theoretical perfection, but they never actually build anything with their own hands. She pointed at the modified drive core. We saw right away that your flow regulators were positioned wrong. They were running in parallel when they should have been in series. Any mechanic who has ever rebuilt an engine would have spotted that mistake instantly. But your engineers never make mistakes because they never build anything. So they never learn to see the problems that only show up in the real world. Wanted to argue, but he could not find the words. The human woman was right. Society had automated all manual labor thousands of years ago. Their engineers were brilliant theorists who had never touched a wrench in their lives. They designed systems based on pure mathematics without ever getting their hands dirty. The humans were different. They built things, they broke things, they fixed things. They learned by doing, not just by thinking. Commander ordered his crew to prepare for departure. The Ascendant Glory was operational again, thanks to a handful of humans who should not have been able to help at all. Before the two ships separated, Jake came to say goodbye. He extended his hand to in the human gesture of friendship. It was good meeting you, Commander. I hope this is the start of something positive between our peoples. Looked at the offered hand for a long moment. Then slowly he reached out and shook it. The human's grip was firm and warm. You have given me much to think about, Captain. I will report what happened here to my superiors. I cannot predict how they will react. Jake nodded. Whatever happens, remember that we helped because we wanted to, not because we expected anything in return. That is just how humans are. The Ascendant Glory departed for space, while the Endurance returned to Earth. Both crews knew that this was only the beginning of something much larger. News of the incident spread quickly through the Empire. Within days, every ship captain and engineer in the fleet had heard the story. A primitive species from an uncharted world had repaired. They had fixed technology that the greatest minds in the Empire had declared unfixable. And they had done it in a single night using crude tools and simple ingenuity. The High Council of the Empire called an emergency session. For the first time in centuries, the leaders of the most powerful civilization in the galaxy were genuinely worried. Trade Minister was the first to speak. She was an older with calm eyes and a sharp mind. This development could be extremely valuable to us. These humans have demonstrated an ability to solve problems in ways we cannot replicate. We should consider bringing them into the Empire as partners. High Admiral slammed his fist on the table. He was a military leader who had won 100 battles and he did not like surprises. Partners. These creatures are a threat. If they can repair our technology, they can learn to destroy it. We should eliminate them before they become dangerous. They helped our people, argued. They asked for nothing in return. Does that sound like the behavior of a threat? It sounds like the behavior of a species that is clever enough to hide its true intentions, replied. They want us to trust them. They want us to let our guard down. Then they will strike. The debate continued for hours. Some council members sided with and saw opportunity. Others sided with and saw danger. In the end, they reached a compromise that satisfied no one. They would send a delegation to Earth. The diplomats would study the humans and evaluate their potential. If the humans proved useful and cooperative, they would be offered a place in the empire. If they proved dangerous, the war fleet would follow the diplomats and wipe out the human race before they could become a genuine threat. Commander was chosen to accompany the delegation. He had more experience with humans than anyone else in the empire. His opinion would carry great weight in the final decision. As he prepared for the journey back to the small yellow star, found himself thinking about Jake. The human captain had helped him without hesitation. He had risked his own life to save people he had never met before. Did not understand that kind of behavior. It went against everything he had been taught about the universe. Other species were competitors to be dominated or threats to be eliminated. The idea of helping strangers simply because it was the right thing to do was alien to him in the truest sense of the word. Perhaps that was exactly what made the humans so dangerous. Or perhaps it was what made them valuable beyond measure. Did not know the answer, but he intended to find out. The delegation arrived in Earth orbit 3 months later. Their ship was smaller than the Ascendant Glory but still impressive by human standards. It carried diplomats, scientists, military observers, and Commander as the official advisor on human behavior. Ambassador led the delegation. He was a senior diplomat who had negotiated treaties with dozens of alien species. Most of those negotiations had ended with the other species surrendering to demands. He expected the same outcome here. The humans welcomed them with surprising warmth. A fleet of small ships escorted the vessel to a space station orbiting Earth. Banners had been hung in the docking bay to celebrate the arrival of humanity's first official alien visitors. Captain Jake was waiting at the airlock with a team of diplomats and scientists. He had been promoted since their last meeting and now wore the insignia of a Commodore. He smiled broadly when he saw Commander. "Commander, it is good to see you again. I hope the journey was comfortable." Nodded stiffly. "It was acceptable. I am pleased to see that your species has prepared for our arrival." Jake laughed. "Are you kidding? This is the biggest thing that has ever happened to us. The whole planet has been talking about nothing else for months. Everyone wants to meet you." Ambassador stepped forward. He was not interested in small talk. "We are here to evaluate your species, Captain. We will observe your technology, your culture, and your capabilities. Based on our findings, the High Council will decide whether humanity deserves a place in the Empire." Jake's smile faded slightly, but he remained polite. "We understand. We are happy to show you whatever you want to see, but I should mention that we are not really looking to join anyone's empire. We prefer to make our own decisions." Made a dismissive gesture. "All species say that at first. You will come to understand the benefits of imperial membership in time." The tension in the room increased, but Jake kept his composure. He assigned a young diplomatic officer named Amy to serve as the delegation's guide. She was a cheerful woman with brown hair and an easy smile who seemed completely by the towering aliens. "Welcome to Earth," Amy said brightly. "I have prepared an itinerary for your visit. We will start with a tour of our major cities and then move on to our industrial and scientific facilities. Please let me know if there is anything specific you would like to see." Over the following weeks, Amy led the delegation across the planet. They visited New York and Tokyo and London and Cairo. They saw factories and laboratories and universities and farms. Everywhere they went, humans gathered to stare at them with curiosity and excitement. Ambassador found the experience deeply confusing. On most worlds, primitive species reacted to visitors with fear or hostility. The humans showed neither. They seemed genuinely happy to meet their alien guests. Children waved at them from windows. Adults approached them to shake hands and take photographs. Street vendors offered them free food just because they wanted to be part of the historic moment. "Why are they not afraid of us?" asked Amy one day. Amy thought about the question for a moment. I guess because we do not have much reason to be afraid. You came here in peace. You have not threatened us, so why would we be scared? We could destroy your entire civilization with a single fleet, pointed out. Sure, Amy agreed, but you have not, and until you do, we will assume you do not want to. Humans tend to judge people by their actions, not their capabilities. This attitude baffled. They always judged other species by their military potential. A species that could threaten them was an enemy. A species that could not was a servant. The idea of judging others by their behavior rather than their power was completely foreign to him. Meanwhile, Commander was conducting his own investigation. He visited the shipyards where human vessels were built. He toured the engineering schools where human technicians were trained. He spent long hours talking to scientists and mechanics and ordinary workers. What he learned troubled him deeply. Humans were natural problem solvers. Their entire history was a series of disasters followed by innovative solutions. They had survived ice ages and plagues and wars that should have destroyed them. Each time they were knocked down, they got back up and found a way to overcome the challenge. More importantly, they worked together in ways that they could not understand. Human engineers collaborated freely, sharing ideas and building on each other's work. They did not hoard knowledge for personal advantage. They did not compete with their colleagues for recognition. They simply worked together to solve whatever problem was in front of them. Visited a small repair shop in a city called Detroit. It was run by an old man named George who had been fixing machines for 50 years. His hands were and his back was bent from decades of hard labor. But his eyes were sharp and his mind was quick. "So you want to know the secret of human engineering," George said with a grin. "It is simple. We are not afraid to fail. We try things. If they do not work, we try something else. We keep trying until we figure it out. Failure is not the end for us. It is just another step in the process." Considered this. Engineers were trained to never fail. They ran thousands of simulations before building anything. They eliminated every possible error before a single component was manufactured. The idea of deliberately trying things that might not work was unthinkable. "But what if you fail at something important?" asked. "What if your failure costs lives?" George's smile faded. "Then we mourn the ones we lost, and we work even harder to make sure it never happens again. Every failure teaches us something. Every mistake makes us stronger. That is how we grow." Returned to Ambassador that night with a heavy heart. He had reached a conclusion that would not be popular with the High Council. "These humans are dangerous," he said, "but not in the way Admiral believes. They are not plotting against us. They do not want to conquer us. They are dangerous because they are unpredictable. They solve problems in ways we cannot anticipate. They grow stronger with every challenge. If we try to destroy them, we might fail, and failure against this species could be catastrophic." Frowned. "What do you recommend?" Was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke the words that had been forming in his mind for weeks. "I recommend that we offer them partnership. True partnership, not servitude. Let them work alongside us instead of beneath us. Their abilities combined with our resources could make the Empire stronger than ever before. And if they are our partners, we will never have to discover what happens when they become our enemies." Was not convinced, but he agreed to include's recommendation in his report to the High Council. The fate of humanity would be decided by beings who lived thousands of light years away, and neither side knew what that decision would be. Commodore Jake received a secret message from Commander 3 days before the delegation was scheduled to return to space. The message was short and alarming. "The Council is divided. Admiral pushes for war. You must demonstrate your value before it is too late." Jake read the message twice and then called an emergency meeting with Earth's leadership. The president of the United Earth Coalition, a calm woman named, listened carefully as Jake explained the situation. "So the aliens might decide to destroy us," she said flatly. And the only way to prevent that is to prove that we are useful to them. That is what believes, Jake confirmed. He thinks we need to show them something impressive, something that proves human ingenuity is worth more than our planet's resources. President leaned back in her chair. What do you have in mind? Jake had been thinking about this question since he received the message. The answer had come to him in the middle of the night. We challenge them, he said. We ask them to bring us something they cannot fix, something that their best engineers have given up on, and then we fix it in front of them. The president raised an eyebrow. That is a significant risk. What if we fail? Then we are no worse off than we are now, Jake replied. But if we succeed, we prove once and for all that humans are worth keeping around. President considered the proposal for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. Make it happen, Commodore. The future of our species depends on you. Jake contacted Ambassador with the challenge. The diplomat was intrigued despite himself. You want us to bring you broken technology that we cannot repair? Asked. Why would you make such an offer? If you fail, it will prove that humans are no more capable than we already believed. And if we succeed, it will prove that we can do things you cannot, Jake replied. It seems like a fair test to me. Discussed the proposal with his advisors. Commander strongly supported the idea. He believed that humans would succeed because he had seen what they could do with his own eyes. The delegation contacted the High Council and requested permission to conduct the test. After much debate, the council agreed. They sent a transport ship carrying a piece of ancient technology that had been broken for 2 centuries. It was a shield generator from an old warship. The device had been damaged in a battle long ago, and the technology to repair it had been lost. Every engineer who had studied it agreed that the primary matrix was too corrupted to restore. The council believed it would be impossible for the primitive humans to succeed where thousands of experts had failed. The demonstration was held in a converted aircraft hangar in Houston. Commodore had invited engineers and scientists from every country on Earth. They came from Japan and Germany and Brazil and India. They came from universities and factories and small repair shops in tiny towns. They came because they wanted to help and because they loved solving puzzles. The delegation gathered to watch. Ambassador expected the humans to fail quickly and embarrassingly. Admiral had sent observers to document the demonstration so it could be used to justify the coming war. Only Commander believed the humans had a chance. When the shield generator was uncrated, a murmur ran through the crowd of human engineers. The device was beautiful even in its broken state. It was made from crystal and materials that human science could not identify. It represented technology far beyond anything Earth had ever produced. Dr. Morgan was the first to approach it. She had studied the readings from the Ascendant Glory repair, and she had some theories about how technology worked. She spent an hour taking measurements and running scans while other engineers watched and took notes. The primary matrix is definitely damaged, she announced finally. But I do not think it is corrupted. I think it is just out of alignment. The crystals have shifted over time and they are no longer synchronized. Ben Carter joined her at the examination table. So, if we can realign the crystals, the matrix might work again. Theoretically, said, but the alignment would have to be perfect. We are talking about tolerances of a few nanometers. That is incredibly precise work. A young woman pushed through the crowd. Her name was Wright and she was only 17 years old. She had been building custom computers in her garage since she was 12, and she had won several national science competitions. I might be able to help with that, said. I have been working on a precision alignment system for microchip manufacturing. It uses sound waves to position components at the nanometer scale. Maybe the same technique would work here. The engineers gathered around as she explained her idea. Within an hour, A team had formed to adapt her technology for use on the alien device. They worked through the night, building custom tools and testing different approaches. Old George from Detroit arrived the next morning. He had heard about the demonstration on the news and driven straight to Houston. When he saw the alien power coupling, he scratched his chin thoughtfully. "This reminds me of a tractor engine I repaired once," he said. "The timing chain had slipped and everything was out of sync. I had to disassemble the whole thing and put it back together piece by piece." "You think we should take it apart?" Ben asked. "I think we need to understand how it fits together before we can fix it," George replied. "You cannot repair something if you do not know how it works." The team carefully disassembled the shield generator while they watched in horror. No one had ever taken apart a piece of technology before. The council would have considered it sacrilege. But the humans did not care about sacrilege. They cared about solving the problem. It took 3 days of continuous work. Engineers worked in shifts around the clock, perfected her alignment technique. George figured out the sequence for reassembly, identified the damaged crystals, and found a way to repair them using focused laser light. Ben welded everything back together with the same stubborn determination he had shown on the Ascendant Glory. On the 4th day, the shield generator was whole again. Ambassador stepped forward with a portable scanner. His hands trembled slightly as he checked the readings. "This is impossible," he whispered. "The matrix is perfectly aligned. Every crystal is synchronized. This device is operating at full capacity for the first time in 200 years." The room erupted in cheers. Humans hugged each other and slapped each other on the back. Some of them cried. They had done the impossible and they knew it. Commander approached Commodore with something like respect in his 4 eyes. "How did you do this?" he asked. "Our finest engineers studied this device for generations. They said it could never be repaired." Jake smiled. "Your engineers are brilliant, but they are trained to work alone and to never fail. Our engineers are trained to work together and to keep trying even when things look hopeless. Different approaches for different challenges." Nodded slowly. He understood now what made humans special. It was not their technology, it was their spirit. And that spirit could not be measured by any scanner. Ambassador's report to the High Council was the longest document he had ever written. He spent 2 weeks composing it during the journey back to space. Every word was carefully chosen. Every argument was supported by evidence. He knew that the future of 2 civilizations depended on how the Council received his findings. The report concluded with a recommendation that surprised even himself. "The humans are not a threat to be eliminated. They are a resource to be cultivated. Their minds work in ways we cannot comprehend. They find solutions through intuition, improvisation, and sheer stubbornness. Where we see perfection, they see room for improvement. Where we see impossibility, they see a challenge. I recommend full partnership status for Earth." The High Council convened to debate the recommendation. Admiral argued passionately against it. "These creatures repaired technology that we could not," he said. "They improved designs that we considered perfect. Today they are helping us. Tomorrow they might be replacing us. We should destroy them while we still can." Trade Minister countered with equal passion. "Destroy them. They have done nothing wrong. They helped our ship. They welcomed our delegation. They showed us hospitality instead of hostility. What kind of empire destroys those who offer friendship?" The debate continued for days. Council members reviewed the evidence from the demonstration in Houston. They watched recordings of human engineers working together, arguing and laughing and solving problems that should have been impossible. They saw something that made many of them uncomfortable. They saw a species that might one day surpass them. In the end, the vote was close. Trade Minister's faction won by a narrow margin. Earth would be offered partnership, not destruction. Commander was chosen to deliver the news. He traveled back to the small yellow star where his journey with the humans had begun. This time his ship carried diplomats and scientists instead of weapons. Commodore Jake met him at the same space station where they had parted months before. The human looked older somehow. The stress of waiting for the council's decision had taken its toll. "Commander," Jake said with a weary smile, "I hope you bring good news." Nodded slowly. "I do. The High Council has voted to offer Earth full partnership status in the Empire. You will have access to our technology and our trade networks. In exchange, you will contribute your engineers and problem solvers to Imperial projects." Jake let out a long breath. "That is good to hear. We were preparing for the other possibility." "I know," said. "We detected your defensive preparations. Your species does not give up easily, even when the odds are impossible." "That is what we do," Jake replied. "We fight, we adapt, we survive. It is in our nature." The partnership treaty was signed 3 months later in a ceremony broadcast across both civilizations. President signed for Earth. High signed for the Empire. Billions of beings watched as two species that had nearly gone to war instead chose to work together. Human engineers were dispatched to shipyards across the sector. They arrived with their tool kits and their bad jokes and their endless questions. The engineers found them annoying at first. These primitive creatures did not follow proper procedures. They touched things they were not supposed to touch. They asked questions that had obvious answers. They made mistakes constantly. But they also solved problems. They found flaws in designs that had been considered perfect for. They suggested improvements that made ships faster and weapons stronger and shields more resilient. They brought a fresh perspective to technology that had grown stale over 12,000 years of stagnation. Within 5 years, the Empire was stronger than it had ever been. Human innovations had increased fleet efficiency by 40%. New ship designs incorporated the best of both civilizations. Was no longer considered indestructible because humans had learned to repair it when it broke. Commander was promoted to admiral and placed in charge of human integration. He spent most of his time traveling between Earth and the, building bridges between two very different cultures. One evening, he visited Commodore at his home on Earth. Jake had retired from active service and now lived in a small house in Nebraska, not far from the farm where he had grown up. He spent his days tending a garden and teaching engineering to local children. "You seem content," observed as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. "I am," Jake agreed. "I never wanted to be a hero or a diplomat. I just wanted to help people. Now I get to do that without worrying about interstellar politics." Was quiet for a moment. Then he asked a question that had been bothering him for years. "Why did you help us? That first day, when you found the Ascendant glory drifting in space, you had no reason to risk your lives for aliens you had never met. Why did you do it?" Jake thought about the question carefully. "Because you needed help. That is really all there is to it. Where I come from, you do not leave people stranded when you can do something about it. It does not matter who they are or where they come from. If someone is in trouble and you can help, you help. That is just being a decent person." "But what if helping us had put your own people in danger?" Jake shrugged. "Then we would have dealt with that danger together. Humans are pretty good at facing danger when we have to. And we have found that helping others usually works out better than ignoring them in the long run." Considered this. The way was to calculate advantages and disadvantages before making any decision. The human way was to do what felt right and deal with the consequences later. Both approaches had merit. Perhaps the best path forward was to combine them. "You have changed us, you know," said finally. "The Empire is different now because of humanity. We think differently. We work differently. We are beginning to understand that perfection is not the end of growth but the enemy of it." Jake smiled. "And you have changed us too. We are not alone in the universe anymore. We have neighbors and partners and friends among the stars. That changes how we see ourselves and our place in things." The two old friends sat in comfortable silence as the stars came out. Somewhere up there, human and engineers were working side by side, solving problems that neither species could handle alone. The galaxy was becoming a better place because two civilizations had chosen cooperation over conflict. It had all started with a broken ship and a simple act of kindness. That was the human way. Help those who need it, fix what is broken, keep trying until you find a solution. And never, ever assume that something is impossible just because no one has done it before. They had thought their technology was indestructible. The humans had shown them that nothing is indestructible. Everything can be broken. But more importantly, the humans had shown them that everything can also be fixed. You just have to be willing to try.